There are so many industries that lack diversity, and the automotive industry is one of them. The percentage of dealerships owned by people of color is dismal, and there are even fewer owned by women of color.
Welcome to the Empowerment Zone with Ramona Houston, where we zone in on Black and Brown relations and our journey to empowering our communities.
Today I am talking to Grené Baranco, who is a strong advocate for increasing the numbers of people of color and women, and particularly women of color in the dealer space. Grené entered the automotive industry at the age of 15 through her family, moving up the dealership ladder and serving in multiple capacities ever since. Currently, Grené serves as Vice President of E-commerce for Mercedes-Benz of Buckhead, and she also owns G-Lux Automotive, Atlanta's newest independent online dealership. In addition to believing in the empowerment of women, she also embraces social responsibility and uses her influence to make a social impact in her community. Enjoy our conversation and see show notes for more information about Grené Baranco. As always, make sure you subscribe to the Empowerment Zone podcast and give us a rating on Apple Podcast. Your support will make sure that we continue our journey in empowerment and impact. It is a pleasure to have you on the Empowerment Zone. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So you are one of the African American women who are really doing well in the automotive industry. And I know you have so much great advice you could provide on, how to be successful in the automotive industry as an African American woman. But before we get there, can you give us a little bit of background about yourself and just explain your professional trajectory and how you got into the automotive business?
Okay, absolutely. Well, I got into the automotive business the way, frankly, a lot of people get into the automotive business. And we can talk about that and why that matters, if you like. But it via my family. So my parents, my dad was in the business. Basically, we were in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and he wanted to be in the automotive industry. So back then, they wouldn't let Black people in the automotive industry, not in the front anyway. And he wanted to sell cars. So they wouldn't allow him to do that. Anyway, the story goes, he went back every day for like a month and just sat outside. And finally they told him to come in. And that's how he started. So he went from there to getting the opportunity to own his own dealership through one of the minority programs that Ford had at the time. So we moved to Atlanta in 1978 and opened our first dealership, Baranco Pontiac. And from there, we have been in the business, all that time. Currently, we have Mercedes-Benz of Buckhead here in Atlanta, Georgia, and Mercedes-Benz of Covington in Louisiana. So I came into this industry through my family. We always worked on it together. We always felt like it was everybody's business, and everybody did need to kick in and help from day one. So I basically feel like I was born into it. It's in my blood. I love it. It's my second home. So that's the way I got into the industry. Started off as a receptionist at 15 and then cashier and all kinds of things in sales and internet sales. I actually started our internet department in 1997. It was one of the first internet departments in the country for automotive dealer. So that's how I got into the industry. And that's important because that's the way a lot of people get into the industry. So if we don't have Black dealers and Black families in the industry, then that automatically pretty much makes it very difficult, even more difficult for Black people to rise to the level of dealer or owner in the industry.
So tell us about the stats in terms of how many African American owned dealerships do we have in the country? and what you see as the process of improving the percentages.
Yep. Well, right now, as far we have now African American, that's a different number that I don't necessarily have, but minority, which includes everybody, I believe. So that number is 1146, I believe. I can confirm that with NAMAD. They keep all those stats. But I do know that the number of Black women dealers is 6. So they're over 17,000 dealership rooftops in the country, right? And we have 6 Black women dealers, period. And 2 of those are sisters who are second generation, and their dad is really progressive and getting them raised up to work in the industry, and they love it. And so their father put them on what they call paragraph third, which says who the dealers are. And so they've worked in the industry for their whole lives and are now our 5th and 6th Black female dealers. So it's pretty dismal.
Oh, wow, that's amazing, especially when you look at the fact that people of color buy cars, but yet we are not on the other end of receiving the benefits of that particular industry.
Exactly. And it's a great industry to be in because it's a high paying industry. If you do it right, you can make a significant amount of money. And there are several different positions where you can make that money, but we're just not in position to even get involved. I mean, it's hard enough for Black men to have broken that barrier. For Black women, it's really difficult. And like you said, it's a shame because we're the ones who are making the decisions, the purchasing decisions, overwhelmingly so.
Mhm.
And now we are the majority of the people actually with the registrations in our name.
Mhm.
So we're the purchasers as well. So yeah, we need to be reflected in this industry, I do believe.
So, tell us about that process and how you think we should increase the numbers of women of color, and specifically African American women in the automotive industry.
Well, I think it starts off with awareness. Like, I saw your face when I said 6. You're like, well, very surprised. And so we've got to let people know that this is the case so that we can use our dollars as our votes, right? I see so many Black people buying these super expensive cars from companies that don't have any Black dealers, period. You know what I mean? So do a little bit of research and see, is there a Black company out there that you can buy from? I mean, that's huge. And see if you can work with them. And if there are none, ask yourself why and see if you really want to support that. We got to vote with our dollars. I mean, they're not going to listen to anything else. So what we hear all the time is that there aren't any qualified Black people out there. Well, I'm in a program that we have, the NADA Dealer Academy. That's the National Automobile Dealers Association, our big association, which I love and am a part of. So, but they have a dealer academy and it prepares people for dealership ownership. So there is a path. So even if you have identified a person who maybe doesn't have all of the experience or whatever you're looking for in a dealer, you can take that person and send them to Dealer Academy and they can learn whatever they need to know there. So as far as having qualified people, I know a lot of qualified people
We
myself
all
being
do, right?
right. But even in this industry, I mean, and you do rarely see Black women and in positions of management in the front, for customer facing management positions. So usually we're in the office, tag and title, things like that, which is fine, but we need to be up front and center because we need to affect how we are working with each other in this very large purchase, you know.
And you're so right that women are the ones making the decisions in the household in terms of purchasing. And so we need to be more conscious about who we purchase our cars from if we want to really um, help and support the growth of Black owned, minority owned businesses in the automotive industry. So when you look at the getting more women in the industry, what are the pipelines that you see where we can actually introduce Black women to the actual career option of the automotive industry? That wasn't on my list. I'm talking and even exposed to me as a young person, or even as a uh, uh, professional in college. And
Mhm.
so how and what point do you expose them? Because everybody, as you know, since there are only 6 Black women, there are very few Black families who are currently in the automotive industry, and that is how you explain some of you got exposed to the industry. So where in the pipeline can we begin to expose young people as that this is actually a career option? Not just young people, even professionals. Where can how can we create pipelines?
Right. Well, I mean, as individual dealers, we do things like college fairs and things like that. But like you said, there are only a few of us, so there's only so many people that we can reach. Now, I will say that as a Black woman in this business, I know lots of Black people in the industry. I know lots of, Black engineers and things like that, technicians. So they're out there, but you're right. That's only because of my area of influence, or my area of my circle of friends, basically, and colleagues. But I think we've got to, like I said, get the awareness out there that this is an issue. There aren't any Black, really significant numbers of Black women or really African American dealers, and they're shrinking. The numbers are shrinking for African Americans. Um, and so use things like social media to kind of, ask the questions and demand, like, okay, we really want to support having more African Americans in this to purchase from, to have that option. And then because the fact is that in order to have a franchise dealership, you have to be approved, or it has to be appointed to the dealer. So to go through that approval process, you've got to have, a load of experience, but also you've got to have their approval, right? So even if you are experienced, if they may pick someone else who probably has more money and things like that. So we also need to, and the banks, a lot of banks like JP Morgan Chase and Wells Fargo, frankly, are stepping up, and Santander seriously are stepping up to their DEI programs to get more Black people in this industry, and doing a great job actually putting their money where their mouth is.
Mhm.
Um, but we need to basically just sort of spread the word. And then once we start talking about it and why it's important, which is, like I said, we need to be represented. It's a high paying industry, and one that we're just not even there, but yet we're paying a lot of people's salaries. So we benefit from that. Basically just awareness, because people got to start talking about it. Then once they start talking about it, then we can, spread the word a lot more. People think about it as maybe it's something for themselves. They need to see themselves in that role. So when they go buy their cars, the 56% of the people, women who are buying cars, they see a Black woman and that they can buy from. And so that'll make them think, oh, well, maybe I might want to do that. Or maybe my daughter may want to engage in that. Do you mind if she talks to you? We're always open to speak with people. Um, but if they never see it, it doesn't occur to people. So we got to get some Black people in there right now, basically to provide a role model and to spread the word, because the people are there. We just have to be there too.
So you talked about getting the in. What are the roles that people can begin thinking about and pursuing right now until they get to the point where they're in a position to be able to be a dealership owner?
So great entry level, not entry level, but everybody's looking for technicians. I mean, everybody. So if you can get in one of these technical schools, they have them even in high school. I think 2 high schools have them here in Georgia. But there are technical schools, and just Google it, for to be a technician. So if you have any inclination, I mean, when we get technicians, I mean, a lot of them, they're basically engineers. So once you get that training, it can take you so far. I've seen people go on to engineering school and get these schools and get major jobs, in other fields. But you'll always get a high paying job if you are a technician. So that's one area I would advise people go into. The other is through sales. If you want to be a salesperson, if you want to be a dealer one day, the best way to get into it, on the variable side, which is the sales side, is through, go on in and apply for a job for either a product specialist or a salesperson. Okay, and the people at the dealership will guide you to how to either prepare for that role, or maybe you should start here and then get to that role. But I think if you go into a dealership and say that you want to be a salesperson or a product specialist, that'll be a good entry level position that you can grow from pretty easily.
So when you talk about the need for African American women, more African American women to be in the industry, there, let's speak specifically to them and how you would see increasing the numbers of African American women. What are the challenges that they should anticipate, and what can they do to really get into that career?
Well, the challenges are going to be, they're going to say you don't have experience. Right? So being willing to go in at an entry level position is important, but also just believing in yourself and having confidence, because these people don't know anything more than you do. And
Mhm.
it's whoever's bold enough and believes in themselves enough to go on and get it, and ask for it. Those are the ones who actually get what they need. But I don't think I'm answering your actual question. What was the question
No,
again?
you are. I'm asking you. We're talking. I want to talk specifically to women of color and Black women specifically. What kind of message do you have to them about the automotive industry? When you talk about increasing the numbers, when you talk about maybe some of the challenges they can anticipate, I want to speak specifically to that group of women. And what message would you have for them?
Okay, thank you. Well, I mean, I would just say, think about this as an option. Right now, the industry is going through a lot of changes with COVID, and all the in, inventory issues that we've been having because of the supply chain, because of all kinds of reasons. But either way, we're having major issues in the industry, and a lot is changing. The way we do business is becoming more digital, more automated. So I think younger people should really look at this industry, because they can be a part of, anybody can, but certainly be a part of this change in creating the next dealership or retail automotive experience. So I would just say, for African American women, go on LinkedIn, and there are groups. There's one group called WOCAN, Women of Color in Automotive. WOCAN, I love that group. And it's for women in all different areas of automotive, and they've come together and they have speakers. They feature people who are, technicians or managers, or just working in Black women, frankly, or women of color who are working in automotive. And so they have classes, like I said, and things like that. So I would definitely follow them, reach out to them. I mean, everybody that I know in this space is happy to, like I said, talk and advise or mentor. You can look me up on LinkedIn. I can share resources that I have. But yeah, I really like LinkedIn, to be honest. I used to not even consider it, or even think about it. But ever since I realized that people were probably looking at my LinkedIn, so I went and kind of straightened it up. And I've just seen so many good connections, so many good articles, so many wonderful resources. So I advise them to go on there and reach out to some people, and just search for women in automotive. So uh,
So let's talk about you specifically in the automotive industry. You talked about starting the internet sales on in your particular dealership. Can you tell us more about that and what your process was?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting at the time. Basically, I was working with my dad. I think at the time I was his assistant or something. And so he told me, hey, I heard some people are starting to sell cars on the internet. Go figure out who it is and how they do it and do it. So I found three dealers and went out and sat with them and looked at what they did. Like I said, it was 1997. So nobody, we were happy they try to have a website maybe. So, but anyway, we did it though. We started selling cars on the web. People were saying, our traditional salespeople were saying, oh, she's wasting time and she needs to come on down here, blah, blah, blah. Then of course, once I started selling 12 cars a month, they said, oh, she's taking our sales. We need some of those internet leads, But so we had three dealerships at the time, an Acura store and Lincoln Mercury and Pontiac Buick GMC. So we installed internet departments in all of our dealerships and have had them and have been ahead of the curve. Now with digital retailing coming up and being more automated, we've been, ahead of that. That's how we really were saved through COVID, was through our digital efforts. So our salespeople were already ready to work from home, right? And you'd never see that in the car business.
Of course, of course. So how did that change your business model?
Beautifully. It made us more efficient. Now we have all of our morning meetings online. We used to all have to gather together and talk. It's hard to get everybody in a room and to do it on a regular basis. Now all of our meetings are online, they're virtual, and we love it. And so we get to communicate with each other better. We communicate with our customers much better because we're communicating digitally in the way they want to communicate, right? So it's just made it a lot easier. We've got all of our salespeople who they don't have to run back and forth to the manager and find out what the price is and all that stuff. They can work their own deals based on their conversations and consultations with the clients and customers. It's just a better experience for everybody all around.
Well, I know your family must be really proud to be one of the ahead of the curve in the whole process of selling cars digitally.
They are, and my dad, as I mentioned, he's always been ahead of the curve as far as technology. And in the '80s, when we had our second Pontiac dealership on Covington Highway, the design of it was such that I don't have all the details. I'm not an engineer, but it was really like a funny looking building, and it was designed with the environment in mind, and that some kind of way. We didn't have sun. I don't think we had the panels at that time, but it was designed to take advantage of the heat and whatever. And we didn't have, bills, heating bills and things like that for quite some time. So he's always been ahead of the curve and instilled that in me. And so that's where my passion is as well.
That's great. That's great. So here at the Empowerment Zone, we're all about giving, philanthropy, service, and social responsibility. So can you tell us a little bit about your work in terms of how you impact the community? What are some of your efforts in terms of fulfilling your social responsibility and making an impact in the community?
Yeah. So that's a huge part of being a dealer and one of the best parts because you have the resources and, to influence and, to support your community. And so it's not influence, but really just support. So, we're in schools. I personally, of course, was, when my kids were growing up, I was in the PTA and all of that, whatever, all the volunteer activities of my community. But I'm also on the board of Meals on Wheels Atlanta. We feed seniors and their pets, and we also do some home renovations for seniors. And more than that, what we do is provide somebody to talk to, company. A lot of people, we develop relationships and are there for people who are oftentimes at home alone. So I really love that organization and always have. Aside from that, I've been active quite a bit on Common Cause Georgia. Common Cause is an organization that, for whatever reason, has been in my life since I was 19. And I lived in Washington, D.C., and got a job working for Common Cause. It's a nonpartisan organization but our goals are transparency in government, voting rights. We don't believe, obviously, that there is any voter fraud, and that's just a waste of our money and time and things like that. So we also track donations and things like that. So that's a part of our transparency. So when I moved to Georgia, some kind of way Common Cause came back up, and I ended up joining the board here of Common Cause Georgia. And that is, I'm very heavily involved in politics. I just think that everybody should be, as much as possible.
Mhm.
It's not easy, and it's not necessarily that, it takes time. So, you have to fit it in. But there's something that everybody can do to get involved to help our democracy survive and survive, period.
Mhm.
So that's where I put my focus, my energy, and my work is mostly on the political scene. I'm also on the Regulatory Affairs Committee on the NADA Regulatory Affairs Committee. I think pretty sure I'm the first Black woman to be on that. But so we talk, I'll be there at Legislative Day in DC this coming up. And I'll have a meeting with Warnock, our senators, Warnock and Ossoff, and really advocate for things that are going on in my neighborhood, right?
Mhm.
So just get involved, and you'd be amazed at if 5 people write to a politician, then that's a big deal. Oh my God, they'll vote your way. If you the smallest amount of effort, because so many people don't get involved, makes such a huge difference. So I would encourage you to reach out to your legislators, make your opinions known, see how you can volunteer and get involved.
That's so true. Civic and political engagement is so important, and we have to be engaged individually and collectively as a community. Here at the Empowerment Zone, we really believe in service and philanthropy, and that people and organizations should use their power and their platforms to do good. And it's great to hear about your work with Meals on Wheels, which I didn't know that they took care of pets too, which makes so much sense. And Common Cause Georgia and Wokan.
Yes, indeed. Those are just a few of the things that we do, but as a dealership, we do so much more, but those are sort of my passion projects. Yeah.
Mhm. Do you want to talk about any of the things that your dealership does?
Well, we have done so much over the years. So there's CARE, the cancer organization for kids. We support them pretty heavily, and we've seen some amazing things happen with that organization. So also, let's see, United Way, we work with them. Everybody donates a certain amount from their check every week and things like that. So we always have programs. We also sent a group of people down to Haiti when they had that the earthquake, and they worked and got water to people, and we sent supplies. And I mean, we're everywhere. We do whatever we can, and a lot of our employees influence these things. So if they have something like the Haiti trip, it was actually a church trip from one of our employees. And he asked if we would support it. And then other people wanted to get involved as well. And we ended up, like I said, sending a group of people. And I believe they made a big difference. So, yeah.
That's great. Corporate social responsibility. Everybody who owns a business should be involved in taking care and giving to their communities.
Indeed.
So, would you have any final words that you'd like to express in terms of your work and how you what do you see for the future of the automotive industry as well as your work?
Oh, thank you. Well, I think the future of the automotive industry is going to be EVs at this point. Basically, most of the manufacturers have shifted resources from developing ICE cars to developing EVs. So I think we're going to see a little lag time in between the adaptation
Mhm.
full scale. So look for lots of pre-owned cars to happen during that time. And speaking of pre-owned, I've also just started an independent all online dealership. It's called Glux Automotive, GLUX Automotive.com. So And basically, we are a fully functioning dealership, pre-owned dealership, like a Carvana or something like that, online dealership, but we're more local. So wherever we go, we'll be local. And so, and we'll show that you can communicate effectively digitally with clients and have them feel comfortable and empowered to create their own deals. Anyway, so that's what I'm working on. It's a lot of fun, but it's also a lab of sorts. The dealers, the new car dealers are going to basically have to adapt a digital retailing system in the next few years. And a lot of dealers don't have any idea where to start. They've never, either who knows where they are in their digital process, right? But they'll need some help. So my plan is to use GLux to basically figure out what do the customers want? What is the best process for dealers to actually adopt and to execute? Because you don't want to disrupt a process with something that you're not really sure of, right? So you need to, so my plan is to do the research with GLux, find out the best processes, find out the best technology, possibly develop technology that's not existent right now. And then I'll distribute it hopefully to the dealers so that they can have a better process for the customers as well. Because it's all about customer service. I mean, we're here for the customers, and it's not what we want to do, it's what you all want. And so we need to change, some of us, our perspective and understand we're so busy trying to figure out our jobs, but let's simplify and streamline that so that we can focus more on the customer experience. And that's what I'm working on.
So here at the Empowerment Zone, we are big advocates for college success. So what would you recommend if you were talking to students, how they can be more successful in college? But before you begin, can you tell us what college or colleges did you attend? What were your majors or major, and what degrees you received? And what is that strategy that you would give students to make sure that they're successful in college?
Absolutely. Well, I went to college 2 times. So right out of high school, I went to Clark Atlanta University, which is where my grandmother also went and is dear to my heart. So I went there, but like I said, right out of high school, and I wasn't really paying attention or appreciating the money that was going into paying for that college, and just kind of dozied off and left school, right? So then after I got married and divorced and had 2 kids, I realized, hey, I want to finish my degree. So I actually went back to Clark Atlanta University because I had to get those grades up. Accepted anywhere. But Clark, was a little out of my budget at the time. So I went back to Clark and was able to, I made straight A's, as an adult, 31-year-old, for 2 semesters. And then I applied to Georgia State University, which is, for in-state tuition, is very reasonable and affordable. So that's one piece of advice I would say. Look at your in-state options, because oftentimes the difference in tuition is just astronomical. But so I went back as an adult. And so just, I would say for people, for younger people going into school, into college, try to imagine how much free time you actually do have right now, right? You think you're busy and you got to cram it in and do all these things. But trust me, once you have children and you are amazed. The main thing I remember when I had children, I remember thinking, oh my goodness, if I had any idea how much free time I had, I could have gotten so much more done. So just imagine and understand how much time you do have. And so if you're in school and you're paying for it or somebody's paying for it, go ahead and give it your all. And understand that this is an opportunity not only to learn whatever subject, but to learn how to think, how to get through problems outside of, like, my major ended up being religious studies. So what am I doing with that? Well, I do understand a lot more about all the different religions, right? And he who knows one knows none. So it helps me to get along with my clients and understand their traditions And so it has been very helpful, but it doesn't really even matter what your major is. Just go to school. It gets your brain going. It gets you functioning. It just makes you a better person and a more clear thinker, and you'll understand the cultural references and things like that a lot better. So I would encourage you to just realize what a blessing it is to even have the opportunity to go to school and take full advantage of it. Show up to every class. Don't accept anything less than an A, because why would you, right? So go in and get it. If you're there, make the most of it, is my advice, which basically means showing up.
These are great pieces of advice. For many of you who want to save money as you pursue your college education, consider attending an in-state institution. You have a lot of time in college, so make sure you take advantage of your free time. Life changes after college. And then lastly, recognize your blessing for the opportunity to be in college. And as you recognize that blessing, take advantage of the college experience. Thank you so much, Grené. This has been a great interview.
A special thank you to the incredible team of the Empowerment Zone. Terry Ann Gully, theme song. NADWorks, digital support, and of course, our featured guest.